Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. went on Jesse Watters' show on Fox News this week to once again spread more misinformation to confuse Americans about their own health. And some of what Kennedy said was so shocking that it left host Jesse Watters stunned. Now, the reason Watters brought Kennedy on his show this week is because Kennedy made a point that HHS is banning certain food dyes. We're getting rid of orange B and red dye too, and then there's other dyes that are going to be gotten rid of over the next, 18 months, which, okay, sure. Why not? Let's go from the synthetic dyes to the natural dyes. That's what many other countries have done. That's not a problem. The problem, of course, arose from the fact that Kennedy misrepresented literally all of the available science about the true dangers of these dyes. So here is how this conversation happened. Jesse Watters started, and he said, now Greg Gutfeld made a point on The Five today. He said, when I was growing up, I ate Fruit Loops for breakfast every day, and I turned out just fine. Now, I would argue he turned out like a maniac. He's hyperactive and deranged. But does he have a point? What are these food dyes actually doing to kids especially? And that's when Kennedy started on to his long diatribe, but he goes, so there are 9 dyes, Jesse. 2 of them we're going to ban immediately, orange B and red dye 2. We're going to accelerate the removal of red dye 3, so we're going to bring it down to under a year. And the other 6 dyes, within 18 months, we hope to get them out of the food, and that's just the beginning. I mean, one of the problems is that the science about these additives has been systemically depressed, or suppressed, I should say, for 30 years, because the industry has been running this agency and we're getting rid of all those conflicts. We've gotten rid of most of them, and we're going to do real science. And we're going to do science precisely on the issues that Americans care about, making sure their kids are getting food that isn't poison. Let me stop you right there. Anybody who is a scientific researcher or a scientist or holds a PhD is never going to use the phrase, we're going to go do science. We're going to go do science. You sound like a fucking kindergartner. And that is what I'm assuming your intelligence level is at as well. You're making these decisions lying. Oh, it's been suppressed. That's why only I know it. That's why none of you other people know this. I'm smarter than everybody because I'm going to go do science right after recess. He is the dumbest person in this administration. And this administration includes a lot of people that I think would be Forrest Gump level. Kennedy is dumber than all of them. And then he gets even dumber. He says this. The food our kids are eating today is not really food. It's food-like substances, and some of it was made in petroleum refineries, and we need to give our kids real food again. We got the highest chronic disease burden of any country in the world. When my uncle was president, gotta throw that in there, right? Gotta remind people why they even give a damn who you are. 3% of Americans had chronic disease. Today it's 60%. 74% of our kids cannot qualify for military service. That's an absolute lie. That is absolutely not the statistic. We have fertility rates that are just spiraling. A teenager today, an American teenager, has less testosterone than a 68-year-old man. Sperm counts are down 50%. And then Watters goes, wait. An American teenager has less testosterone than a 68-year-old man? That's right, because the testosterone levels have dropped 50% from historic levels. And and that is a problem. It's an existential problem, but that is only when we have obesity that is off the charts. Let me explain to everyone watching, everyone in this country, everyone around the world, how Robert F. Kennedy Jr. manipulates data to therefore manipulate the public. Because this rant about testosterone in the kids is a prime example of it. And this is, by the way, the exact same thing he does with autism. He takes a statement that is, of course, inherently true. In this specific instance, testosterone levels are down. That is a true statement. Then he goes through these studies and he cherry picks numbers and words and certain sentences So we're not getting the whole picture. We're getting just what he wants us to hear. But then that's not enough. He then takes the cherry-picked data, twists it around into something that's not even close to reality, presents it as if he's the only person that knows how things work. I'm the smartest man alive. And then uses this manipulated cherry-picked data to manipulate the public. I found the study. I found the exact study that this dipshit is talking about. And for the record, no, testosterone levels have not decreased by 50%. They're down about 15%. 15. And no, a 68-year-old man today does not have more testosterone than a 20-year-old. Because the study shows, and it does mention, 68-year-olds, but it says a 68-year-old in 1987 would have more testosterone than a 68-year-old today. Not a teenager today, but comparing the same age in 1987 to the same age today. In fact, testosterone levels are not down just in kids. They're not down just in people under 40. They're down across the board by roughly the same margins. It has been a statistical decline that stays steady through the age ranges. So no, a 68-year-old man does not have more testosterone than a 20-year-old, according to the very studies that you're bastardizing. But that's how he does it, folks. He takes a true statement, testosterone levels have declined. He lies about how much 50%, they're down 15%. And then he takes another comparison, a 68-year-old man, but messes it up, screws things up, presents it as if he's an expert that we should trust, and that's how he does it. He does the same thing with autism. Autism rates are in fact up, but that's where his, being correct on the issue ends. He ignores the fact that we have evolved with our diagnostic criteria. We have expanded the diagnostic criteria. We have an entire spectrum of it. Insurance companies are now more willing to accept these diagnoses, so more people are getting tested. We've expanded testing, and so on and so forth. So he lists what's real and then completely makes up the rest. And by the way, talking about these red dyes, there isn't a single study that links any of these red dyes or orange dyes or any of these petroleum-based dyes to a decrease in testosterone or sperm count. Not one. Oh, and those studies get even more interesting because I, unlike Bobby, actually did a lot of homework for this particular segment. And it turns out that there is no agreement in the scientific community as to whether or not any of these petroleum-based dyes actually do cause health problems in humans. There are, in fact, studies that say they do, but unfortunately, the scientists who conducted those studies are still not willing to make that determination because the studies have either not been peer-reviewed or their results have not been replicated by other scientific studies. So no, the scientific community is not ready to make an assessment of whether or not these dyes are harmful or not. Personally, get rid of the dyes. I'm fine with that. Replace them with all natural. That sounds better. I'm okay with that. But at least be honest with the people, with the public, about why this is happening in the first place, instead of lying your stupid, wrinkled little face off about what's actually happening to these people. He then says something else incredibly stupid. Again, when my uncle was president, because again, you got to remind people why they should even care about who you are. We had 11% of people kids at obesity. Today, 74% of Americans are obese or overweight. And in Japan, it's 3%. So, and that's because they pay attention to what they're feeding kids in school. It's also because they have more walkable cities. It's also because kids are getting more exercise, working off the calories that they're consuming. When we have kids that have no access to parks, when we have a Republican Party that's trying to cut their outside time by making them go work in hotels, by changing child labor laws, they don't exactly have a lot of time to go out and be active now, do they? They may be choosing a sedentary lifestyle, and that's on the parents, right? I mean, let's be real here. There are many, 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 many factors into why one country is overweight and another country is not. And it's not because of the dyes in our fucking Fruit Loops, you Fruit Loop. But that's what Kennedy wants you to believe, because as I said, he takes a statement that's true, manipulates all the data to fit his agenda to the point where none of it's true anymore, presents it as if he's the only one smart enough to be able to interpret it, and hopes you won't take the time to do your homework. Thanks for watching, everybody, and if you're not already, please subscribe to the channel. We got fresh content every day for you. And if you want to follow us across social media, make sure you check out all of the social links that we have posted in the description of this video.